Like everything else, the seven deadly sins have their origins in Greek history. The original concept of the seven deadly sins was formulated by the 4th century monk Evagrius Ponticus as 7 evil thoughts in Greek. These evil thoughts were pride, greed, anger, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Though we try hard not to succumb to them, we are only human. The 7 deadly sins are woven into our lifestyle, our culture, and our way of life. So, which one has corrupted you? The first sin is pride, which is also commonly referred to as the father of all sin. Pride, however, in this case, refers to ego or the idea of hubris, which is prevalent in Greek and Roman myth as one of the worst crimes one could commit. Whenever someone believed they were greater or equal to the gods, they were swiftly punished and made an example of. Once one succumbs to pride, this symbolizes a lack of humility. The welfare of others is ignored in place of their urges and desires. This selfishness only leads to contempt and other sins. The most classic example of pride we have is the story of Lucifer, the most beautiful of God's angels. Lucifer began to question everything about the universe he had been told. Eventually, he started to believe that he could do a better job ruling heaven than God himself. This led to a great war in heaven that Lucifer would ultimately lose. For his rebellion, he was cast from heaven and forever known as the fallen angel who personified the sin of pride. The next sin is gluttony. This is the act of overindulgence to the point of waste. Although gluttony is most commonly associated with the consumption of food, it can also refer to an overindulgent lifestyle not too dissimilar from greed. There are several different types of gluttony. Thomas Aquinas divided gluttony into separate forms: eating food that was too expensive, luxurious, or exotic; eating food in excessive quantities; eating food that required elaborate preparation; eating food at an inappropriate time; and lastly, eating food too eagerly. Moving on to greed, or avarice as it's also known. This sin also focuses on desire. The uncontrollable desire for material, social or political gain. From this stems all sorts of questionable behavior. Hoarding riches and materials that could be used to help those in need, stealing in order to obtain what you desire, or lies, trickery and the manipulation of others to achieve status or political power. Early European theologists would go as far as to say, other than the devil, there is no greater enemy to a man than the desire for money. This was commonly used when discussing usury, which is the practice of making immoral or unethical loans that exceed legal interest rates, often taking advantage of others' misfortunes. This is what we would refer to today as a loan shark. Lust is the capital sin that relates to desire of a sexual nature. This was seen as leading to fornication, adultery, sexual assault, and seduction, in some odd cases. Most religions will distinguish lust from passion. Lust was an immoral desire, whereas passion was widely more accepted as it was considered God-given and the main driving force behind reproduction. Lust does also come in some other forms, such as the unbridled desire for money, power and even food. These are minor forms of lust that also relate to greed and gluttony. Envy is a sin that ties closely together with both greed and lust. It is a desire for what others have that leads to resentfulness and sadness. This can mean desiring someone's possessions, achievements, physical and personality traits, or social status. In some cases, you may not desire them, but instead, wish that someone else did not have them. Envy is also separated into two categories: malicious envy and benign envy. Malicious envy is like jealousy, the negative emotion towards people who you perceive as better off than yourself. Benign envy is merely the recognition that someone is better off or in a better position than yourself. This type of envy is still negative, but it can be used in a positive way, such as the motivation to emulate someone's success. Malicious envy only leads down the path of hatred, isolation, and sorrow. The only sin that weighs down the souls more than envy is pride. The most famous example of envy, at least in the book of Genesis, is Cain murdering his brother, Abel, because he was jealous God favored his brother's sacrifice. Sloth is the sin where you start to see the separation from God we mentioned earlier. This is not laziness in terms of one just sitting around the couch all day. Well, actually it is, but it also means spiritual laziness. The Latin for sloth translates to mean without a care, not caring about anything in your current life and even the afterlife. Whatever the church perceived as obligations or duties would be ignored. Losing interest in things in your life such as work, hobbies, friends, and romance leads to sadness and depression. All the sins so far have been someone you should not do. Acts you should not commit but do anyway. However, sloth is the sin of omission, not doing something that you should do. You may have heard the phrases, "The devil makes work for idle hands," or "evil exists when good people fail to act." These were taken from a much older sentiment towards sloths. Wrath, the feeling of rage and anger that one struggles to control. From wrath stems hatred and vengeance that causes feuds that can last for decades and even centuries. Anger was not considered a sin unless it was directed towards an innocent person. Only then does it become the sin of wrath. Anger is normally divided into 3 subsections. Passive anger consists of defeatism, self-blame, and apathy. This was seen as the path that leads to substance abuse and addiction. Aggressive anger consists of bullying, hurtfulness, and vengeance. Assertive anger involves calling out behavior you deem as wrong, blaming the individual responsible for that behavior and then punishing them.